Hello, and welcome back to A Dose of Wellbeing, the Pharmacist Support podcast. This is our podcast where we engage in interesting conversations that hopefully can help improve your well-being. And as it's the beginning of year in February time, we thought it was a really good time of year for us to be able to reassess and realign our lives with what we want for ourselves. And this ensures that we're living the kind of life that brings us joy and is in alignment with our values. So my name's Riven. I'm a Senior Service Delivery Officer in Information Inquiries and Wellbeing at Pharmacist Support. And it's a pleasure to be joined by our Wellbeing Development Manager, Melissa, who has produced an exciting wellbeing workshop called Live the Life You Want to Lead. And we're going to be talking about living the life you want to lead, and in particular, living your values as well. So welcome back, Melissa. Great to have you again.
Thanks, Riven. It's great to be here.
Okay, so I guess on the topic of living your values, a probably obvious question to start with is, what is living your values and why is it important?
Well, I think we often go through life responding and reacting to circumstances without really considering who we are deep down, what we really want out of life, what we really care about. So taking some time to genuinely consider what it is that's important to you. What do you really want out of life? Can help you to steer the course of your life rather than just being dictated to by circumstances as they occur.
Excellent. Yes. So it sounds like something that's really, really important then in, helping you to, achieve the life that you want to live. And I suppose to flip things around then, what happens if we are not living our values?
Yeah. So when we're not living according to our values, we're often responding and reacting to life rather than creating. So when you are aware of what you want in life, when you are aware of what your values are and you're using your values to help you make decisions, you're actively creating the way you want your life to be. So when you're not doing that, it can cause a lot of underlying stress. So when we're living out of alignment with our values, and it's not the kind of stress that's easily identifiable either. So if you're maybe at work and you have a difficult interaction with someone, you might feel stressed after that. You understand where that came from. If you're dealing with medicine shortages and people are starting to get upset because they know that they need that medicine and you're not able to source it for them in time, that can be a stressful situation. You understand where that came from. But the stress of living your life in a way that's out of alignment with your deeper, more core values, it's sneaky. It's a little bit more insidious. It's there, but you might not know why. So you might feel an underlying stress, an irritation, an irritability, but not really know or be aware of where it's coming from. So I think that's what can happen when you're not living life in a way that's in alignment with your values.
Yeah, so it sounds really important, really, that alignment. And I suppose a phrase that we often hear when talking about well-being, that life's happening to you rather than happening for you, perhaps. And
yeah,
living out of alignment with those values, I can imagine for someone it may feel like that, but they might not quite know, why it is really.
Yeah.
So we can clearly see the importance of living in alignment with your values. And people may have an idea of their values, or they think they might know what's important to them. But how would you really truly know? If a person was really wanting to know, what are my values? What are my deep values? And if I don't know, how do I actually find out what my values are?
Yeah, well, I think you could just sit down and think, what's really important to me? What do I think my values are? But I think in some ways that's a really difficult way to do it, because you're just starting with like a blank sheet of paper. It's completely open. It can be kind of hard to focus your mind and think, how do I start from everything to getting down to what my particular values are. So we do have an exercise that we've included in the Live the Life You Want to Lead workshop, which breaks this down and makes it easier. And this is included. You can sign up for free on the Wellbeing Learning platform, and it would be the first activity that you do even before you start the workshop. And I think this can really help you to narrow it down to what are your 8 values that are most important to you.
Great, excellent. And I would certainly encourage anyone to do that. It's something that we've done as a team in Pharmacist Support. And
yeah.
I mean, it's very least, it's a really interesting and fun activity, and particularly when you start, because there's lots of things on there that you might think are really important to me, but when you're really narrowing that down and actually getting to what those core values are for you, I think it's a fascinating exercise, and can hopefully encourage you really to make positive changes in how you're living your life as well. So definitely encourage our listeners to check that out on our Wellbeing Learning platform.
Yeah.
Now, once you know what your values are, what are some practical steps you can take to align your life to your values? And what maybe are the daily actions you can take?
I think the main thing to do is keep your values at the forefront of your mind for when you're making decisions. So, for example, when I did mine, I had the home screen of my phone was a picture of my 8 values. Now, I did mine with little cards. So the exercise that's on the workshop, you can print it out. I know it's not the most eco-friendly, but you can print it out and cut up the values and physically select your top 8. And that's what I did the first time I did it. So I just took a picture. And that way, as things come up, as you're deciding about maybe which direction you want your life to go to, what job should you take, if you've got a family situation and you're having to make a decision, you can bring it out and say, okay, what's going to bring me closer to my values? And so it can be very helpful in that sense. I would say if you're looking at making changes to your life, maybe you've realized doing this exercise that your life is out of alignment with your values. You might start with small steps. So it doesn't mean that you have to be working your ideal job in the perfect state of alignment all the time. It might be that you're staying in your job, but you're finding volunteering opportunities, or you're doing some professional or personal development, or you're finding other ways, or maybe just your way of being within your job. You can work at that. So it doesn't have to be huge, major life changes. It can be small mindset shifts, small behavioral shifts, finding other things that you can do. And so I would say make the small changes first, because sometimes from small changes, you can start to build up momentum, and it becomes easier to later make the bigger changes. But you get a lot of positive feelings, a lot of positive feedback for yourself when you can make small changes, and that can help with making bigger ones later.
Yeah, I love that, that encouragement of those small changes that's kind of shifting your course slightly to that new destination, but probably makes it easier later on in the journey to really start living fully to your values. So that's great.
Yeah.
And what are some common challenges people face when trying to live according to their values or living their dream?
Well, it's a good question, and it's not. I'm glad you brought up dreams, because it's not just living life according to your values. But I think the next step is to think about what are your big dreams. We've all had big dreams in life. Sometimes as we grow up, we let go of some of them. We forget some of them. We think that they're not possible, but they can be key to who we are. So some of the challenges, and by the way, I do think that living according to your values can help you if you've lost your dream to try to find it again. You can find your values and then think, okay, so, what big thing would I love to happen to me? What, if there were no obstacles, what would I be doing? These are sort of the big dream questions. So some of the challenges that people face can be separating from what society or their family expect from them. Those can be some of the really biggest challenges for people. You might have been raised and always told you needed to be a pharmacist or a doctor or whatever, but your dream, your heart really sings when you're painting, as an example. So a really big challenge can be sort of uncoupling from those expectations. Sure. The next thing is finding a way to understand what it is that really makes your heart sing. And some of us are still really connected with that. Sometimes people, through life circumstances, can have become really disconnected from what makes their heart sing. So it's finding ways to get involved with things that can connect you back up with what that joy is.
I love that. What makes your heart sing? And I think lots of us could probably, do with getting a better connection with that kind of feeling. Yeah. I mean, can you share a personal story, perhaps, where following your dream positively impacted your life?
Well, I'm going back a few years here, but when I just finished university, I had an opportunity to go to Japan to work for a year. And I wouldn't say my family tried to stop me, but I would say there was definitely some discomfort and on their part, but also my part. I was really young. It was going really far away to a country where I didn't know, I hadn't studied Japanese. I didn't know the language. It was a really big challenge. I was by myself. I wasn't going with a partner or anything like that. And it felt like a risk, but I knew that I really wanted to see the world. I really wanted to travel. I really wanted to sort of get out there and start my own path. And so following that dream was really important for me. And when I look back on it, I can see that it led to so many different things happening in my life that wouldn't have happened if I'd made the choice to just stay at home and not go abroad. So I think sometimes you have these pivotal decisions that can kind of change the trajectory of your life. And
so many positives can come from it. So that's a great story. Yeah. And so how does living in alignment with our values or following our dreams actually affect our mental health and stress levels then?
Yeah, well, I talked before about the stress of being misaligned. And I think that's a really important one, because even when you're talking to, say you go to a doctor and you want to talk about stress levels, maybe you're having blood pressure problems or whatever, they're probably going to ask you about the kinds of stress that you can identify by, are you working too many hours? Are you in a high stress job? That kind of thing. But it's this underlying stress that isn't quite as visible that's really important to be aware of. And I think it can affect our mental health by on the other side as well. So it can bring us stress when we're not aligned. But when we are aligned, when we find ways of bringing ourselves back into alignment, it can bring a lot of joy to ourselves, but also to other people around us. Because when we're feeling happier, when we're feeling more joyful, when we're more uplifted, that reverberates out. Yeah. And it can also be really inspiring to other people who maybe they feel they've become, trapped, if you will, in this life that wasn't really the one that they wanted. But it can be very inspiring to see somebody else finding their way to get back on their own path and be following their own inspiration. And then others, you're sort of creating a model for other people as well.
Yeah, I love that as well. And it kind of reminds me of you talking about that maybe feedback loop in yourself before, but then if you're sharing that with others and, your positivity, and then, maybe even inspiring them to kind of look at their own values, but just that back and forth again, it just seems like it can have an almost never ending, kind of positive impact.
It really can. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And, does connecting with others and say, social support play a role in maintaining our values and well-being?
Yeah, I think whenever you're making change, particularly behavioral change, it's much easier if you surround yourself with like-minded people.
Sure.
Because as social people, humans, we tend to copy the behaviors of the people around us. So if you're wanting to make change, if you're wanting to get yourself onto a new path, if you can connect with people who are already doing what you want to do, that can be one of the best ways to make sure that you keep going. Because they'll provide encouragement. They'll also provide maybe ideas of how you can do it because they've already done it themselves. So trying to find the people who've gotten to where you want to go or who are further along the path than yourself can be a really, really important thing.
Yeah, that sounds great. And once you're aware of your values, are these likely to stay the same or could they change? I mean, is it important to renew your values? And, if so, how often? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so generally speaking, once you've reached a certain stage of adulthood, they tend to stay roughly the same.
Okay.
But when you go through a major life event, they can change. So I think, for example, the birth of a child, the death of a parent, these kinds of things can bring about a change in our values system. They might change our values. They might change what we think we want out of life. We might, you might start thinking, oh my gosh, life is short. What have I been doing? If I'm going to do this, it has to be now. Sometimes these big life changes can bring about a major shift. And in fact, this morning I got a message from a colleague. You mentioned we've done this as a team. And she messaged me this morning to say she had looked at her values again in preparation for our work as a team and realized that they have completely changed from the last time she did it. Wow. And this was, I think, because of some difficult life circumstances she's gone through. But it was quite emotional for her redoing the values and realizing, oh my gosh, I've been totally living my life for everybody else. And I thought I was doing the right thing, but none of my values are about things that I care about and that I need to do. So they can shift. Yeah. So I would say that probably it's worth redoing your values maybe every couple of years to see if they've changed. And particularly if you've been through something.
So I suppose that leads to my follow-up question, but the examples you've given there, I think perhaps answers it in part anyway, but can regular reflection on your values contribute to growth and personal development?
Well, I would say yes.
Yeah. Kind of what I alluded to,
yeah. I think it can. Referring back to your top values, the exercise we do, we encourage you to pick out your top 8. And this can help you to make decisions that can, again, pull you in a direction that can change your life's trajectory in a positive way. So I think it can contribute to personal growth and development. I also think that reflecting not just on values, but taking it a step further and reflecting on your larger hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, this can help to contribute to personal growth and development. But we have to give ourselves the time and the space to dream, which a lot of adults don't do anymore. We become very practical, don't we? And we kind of lose some of that starry-eyed joy, about what life can be. And it all begins with an idea. You can't become something if you can't imagine it first. That's your first step. So giving yourself the time and the space to reflect and to dream and to think about what you really want from life can help to guide you to opportunities to get there, which you might notice and not notice if you're not even aware that this might be a dream. You might not notice that opportunity because you're not in tune with it. Whereas if you're thinking, if you're aware you have a bigger dream or bigger aspirations and an opportunity comes up, you're much more likely to see it and seize upon it. So I think that's really important. So things like journaling can help. Some people use Pinterest and, pull together images. Some people are more visual. Some people like to write. But all of these things can be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And again, just being mindful of these things where, as you say, as an adult, we may have lost touch really quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I suppose in terms of just us here at Pharmacist Support, I mean, is there anything you would just like to say about how we can maybe help students, trainees and pharmacists live their values?
Well, we've got the course available on the Wellbeing Learning platform. So I would say if you're interested in this topic and you want to learn more, definitely log on. You can create a free account. There's no fee attached to it. You'll see the workshop there on the platform. And then it really depends on what someone's dreams or values are. But there are opportunities if part of what drives you is giving back. We have opportunities for volunteering, opportunities to fundraise for us. It doesn't have to just be for us if there's another cause that really resonates with you, but we can help with those kinds of opportunities at our organization.
That's excellent, because I can imagine, I mean, I don't have the statistics on people's top values or anything, but, you know, making a contribution, making a difference, giving, I can imagine that would be quite up there, particularly maybe with the group of people that we help with, because they give so much already, of course, and it's often a really important part of, you know, why they do what they do, really.
Right.
So that's great that we can help people with that. And yeah, in general, for anyone who's found this podcast interesting or inspiring and is wishing to look at defining their values, do you have any kind of wrap-up tips, including the best way to get started?
Yeah, just start.
I kind of thought you might say that.
It's pretty simple, because you know we can get ourselves caught up waiting for the right time.
Yes.
And I think sometimes there's just no right time.
Yep.
So you get started, you take a step, and then see what happens. So take the workshop. If you don't have time for the workshop, maybe just do the values exercise. If you don't want to do that, maybe just start thinking about it, ponder it over a little bit, but consider what makes you happiest and what you care about the most deeply, and start small and make changes that bring you closer to alignment with those things.
Excellent. Well, I love that. Just start. I mean, I think, you know, knowledge is power, but action will often be a lot more powerful. So
agreed.
I think that's probably not a better tip to really, not a better tip to end on than saying just start.
Yeah.
Really. So that's excellent. That's excellent. Well, it's been really brilliant to talk to you today again, Melissa, and I hope our listeners enjoyed our chat as much as I did, and perhaps inspired to complete a values check-in, or if it's the first time, check on their values, and of course check out your fantastic wellbeing workshop, Live the Life You Want to Lead, which pharmacy students and trainees can access completely free by signing up to our wellbeing learning platform. And if you have enjoyed or been inspired by today's podcast and would like to support us to create more wellbeing content for the pharmacy profession, please consider making a donation. You can find a QR code in the show's description or at the end of the video for those of you watching. Donations also help us to provide our essential services, including our counselling and our peer support services, financial assistance and other forms of support. If you're interested in receiving inspiring wellbeing content, please consider signing up for our Act Now campaign as well, and you can find more information on our website, pharmacistsupport.org. So again, just a massive thank you for your time again today, Melissa. And thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. And we look forward to joining you again on our next episode of A Dose of Wellbeing, the Pharmacist Support podcast. So take care and bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.